There is no greater honor, no greater calling than to be righteous, which simply means being upright. It is said that righteousness is its own reward. This is a truism. But to teach righteousness is greater still, infinitely greater. For me, to have earned the designation teacher of righteousness is both my exaltation and deepest humility. For I must ever strive to be worthy of it. I have come to lead a movement of righteousness, which came together in the years following our people's exile in Babylonia. It began as a group of Israelite priests who opposed the corruption of our rebuilt temple. Rather than accepting the 5 books of Moses, the Torah, of the Zadokite line of temple priests, our movement instead embraced the books of our ancient patriarch Enoch, the 7th in line from Adam. Some call us the Essenes, others the Enochians. Still others call us by another name, the Sons of Light.
The doctrine of the Essenes is this, that all things are best ascribed to God. They teach the immortality of souls and believe that the rewards of righteousness are to be earnestly striven for. And when they send what they have dedicated to God into the temple, they do not offer sacrifices because they have more pure atonements of their own. On this account, they are excluded from the common court of the temple and offer their sacrifices on their own by themselves. Their course of life is none the less better than that of other men, and they entirely devote themselves to the breeding of crops. It also deserves our admiration how much they exceed all other men who devote themselves to virtue and to righteousness, and indeed to such a degree that has never appeared among any other men, neither Greeks nor barbarians. No, not for a short time, but it has endured a long while among them.
The reality is that the Judaism of those days was a cauldron of controversy. On the one hand, the Zadokite priesthood, which had controlled the temple from the days of King Solomon, was supplanted by the family of the Maccabee freedom fighters known as the Hasmoneans. It was their dynasty that now ruled the temple, while the opposition movement, the Essene Enochians, cultivated their own brand of the Jewish faith. Many of the disenfranchised Zadokites apparently fled to Egypt, while others joined the ranks of the Enochians, slowly taking over the movement and establishing Zadokite literature, including the books of Moses, the Torah, as the anchor even of this disparate branch of Judaism. But there were yet other books that surfaced during these tumultuous times of the 2nd century BCE, following the Maccabean revolt. Notably, we have the so-called Proto-Epistle of Enoch, consisting of 3 speeches of Enoch to his sons.
We Essenes carefully copied and preserved this early Epistle of Enoch that was handed down long before our own community was established. In the first speech of Enoch, he asks his son Methuselah to gather the family together.
And now, my son Methuselah, call to me all your brothers, and gather together to me all the sons of your mother. For the word calls me, and the Spirit is poured out upon me, that I may show you everything that shall befall you forever.
Enoch tells his sons to walk in righteousness and not to associate with those who walk with 2 hearts. The second speech of Enoch has been called the Apocalypse of Weeks. In it, we see all of history divided into 10 periods or weeks, ending with the final age of everlasting righteousness.
Hear, O sons of Enoch, all the words of your father, and hearken to the voice of my mouth. For I exhort you and say to you, Beloved, love uprightness and walk therein, and do not draw near to uprightness with a double heart, and do not associate with those of a double heart. But walk in righteousness, my sons, and it shall guide you on good paths, and righteousness shall be your companion. For I know that violence must increase on the earth, and a great chastisement will be executed on the earth, and all unrighteousness shall come to an end. And the righteous shall arise from their sleep, and wisdom shall arise and be given to them.
As time passed, we became less interested in the original sin of the disobedient angels, the so-called Watchers. We continued to copy and preserve this initial book of Enoch, this book of Watchers. But as we see in what is called the Epistle of Enoch, which came down as a later section of the larger book of Enoch, our focus has turned elsewhere to a different understanding of reality. In the first part of the book of Enoch, the angels were depicted as having choice in the sin they committed, cohabiting with human women and spawning a race of giants, as recorded in the book of Genesis.
It was then, and later too, that the Nephilim appeared on earth, when divine beings cohabited with the human women, who bore them offspring. Such were the heroes of old, the men of renown.
But the more we look into the divine mysteries of Enoch's epistle, containing his apocalypse of weeks, the more we recognized that everything has been predetermined from the beginning of time, even the sin of the angels.
The question of free will has dogged humanity from time immemorial. Do human beings have autonomous choice and agency, or not? Was something set in motion at the moment of creation, going back presumably to the Big Bang itself, that determined every aspect of fate and providence? The very fact that the teachers' group of Essenes came to refer to themselves not only as the sons of light, but as the elect of God, tells us a lot about their position on this issue.
We learn from the second speech of Enoch to his sons that just as they are to be spared from the waters of the great flood, soon to engulf the earth, a new remnant will be selected by divine fiat. And just as in the book of Jubilees, all of this has been preordained from the beginning. It is not simply divine election, but a double predestination. The righteous have been selected from the beginning of time, and so have the wicked. It is all part of the divine plan.
And after that, in the 9th week, righteous judgment shall be revealed to the whole world, and all the works of the godless shall vanish from all the earth, and the world shall be written down for destruction. And after this, in the 10th week, in the 7th part, there shall be the great eternal judgment, in which he will execute vengeance upon the angels. And the first heaven shall depart and pass away, and a new heaven shall appear, and all the powers of the heavens shall give sevenfold light. And after that there will be many weeks without number forever, and all shall be in goodness and righteousness, and sin shall no more be mentioned forever.
It's important to stress that the Epistle of Enoch, including the Apocalypse of Weeks, is really the last section of the larger book of Enoch, or more properly, First Enoch. As a whole, it's clear that we're not looking at just a single book. We have 5, all composed at different times and later stitched together as a complete text. The individual sections consist of the Book of Watchers, the Book of the Parables of Enoch, also called the Similitudes of Enoch, the Astronomical Book, also called the Book of the Heavenly Luminaries or Book of Luminaries, the Book of Dream Visions, also called the Book of Dreams, and lastly, the Epistle of Enoch.
We have preserved copies of the Book of Watchers in our desert library, but they are considerably older than the rest of our scrolls. As our community has grown and matured, we have instead focused on copying not only the Book of Jubilees, but the Epistle of Enoch with its Apocalypse of Weeks.
Some say that we gradually lost interest in these earlier books, precisely because our focus shifted from angelic disobedience to double predestination, which later books, such as Jubilees and the Apocalypse of Weeks, fully explain and embrace.
And that explains why most Dead Sea Scroll fragments of the Book of Watchers are relatively early in terms of dating, with none written from the last period of the desert sectarian community. Even the book of Daniel, with its end-time apocalypse depicting 70 weeks leading up to the end of days, still allowed for a sense of free will. But belief in free will was indeed disappearing from among the teacher's disciples.
We make no apology for teaching that everything is in the hands of God, and that human beings only appear to choose that which has long been foreordained. We take great exception to the Sadducees, who teach exactly the opposite, completely denying predestination. The Pharisees try to find a middle ground, only to end up contradicting themselves. We have little patience with them either.
The Pharisees are those who are esteemed most skillful in the exact explication of their laws. They ascribe everything to fate, or providence, and to God, and yet they still believe that to do what is right, or the contrary, is principally in the power of men, although fate does cooperate in every action.
This divide is what lay behind an important letter, composed very early on, after the Maccabean revolt and the rise of the Hasmonean priesthood. It was composed by a rival priestly tradition, a group of dissident Zadokites who joined the parent group from which we Essenes descended. It was addressed to the priestly status quo in Jerusalem, holding out hope that they may see the truth and the light that our side represents. This letter understands that even though the Jewish people have returned from Babylonia, rebuilt the temple, expelled the Seleucid Syrian oppressors, and established a new dynasty to rule the land, Israel is still in exile. Our nation looks forward to final redemption, but is not yet forgiven.
The hugely important letter in question, known in technical jargon as 4QMMT, or the halakic letter, was reconstructed from multiple fragments found in the 1950s in so-called Cave Number 4 at the ancient Essene settlement of Qumran. The first section of the text describes a 364-day solar calendar that would replace the lunar calendar used by the temple priests. The problem with the lunar calendar is that it caused assorted Jewish festivals to fall on the Sabbath day and appears to have been one of the many reasons that the Essene Enochians broke away from the priestly hierarchy in Jerusalem.
The first of the Sabbath, Sunday, and the second day, Monday, and the third are to be added, and the season is complete. The 28th of the 12th month, Sabbath, the first of the Sabbath, Sunday, and the second day, Monday, and the third are to be added to it, and the year is complete, 364 days.
The letter is not just a letter, it is an argument, setting forth our views and calling on our opponents to accept them. There are some who believe that I wrote it, but I only inherited it from those who came before and who still believed that the people might come to accept our pathway. It presents 22 points of Jewish law on which our community differs from the religious leaders of the Jerusalem temple.
And you know that we have separated from the mass of the people, and from mingling with them in these matters, and from being in contact with them in these matters. And you know that no treachery or lie or evil is found in our hands. And furthermore, we have written to you that you should understand the book of Moses, and the books of the prophets, and David, and all the events of every age. And furthermore, it is written that you will depart from the way, and that evil will befall you. And we recognize that some of the blessings and curses which are written in the book of Moses have come. And this is at the end of days, when they will come back to Israel forever, and shall not turn backwards, and the wicked shall act wickedly. Remember the kings of Israel, and understand their works, that each of them who feared the Torah was saved from troubles. And to those who were seekers of the law, their iniquities were pardoned. We have also written to you concerning some of the precepts of the Torah, which we believe are beneficial to you and your people. For we have noticed that prudence and knowledge of the law are with you. Understand all these matters and ask him to straighten your counsel and put you far away from thoughts of evil and the counsel of Belial. Consequently, you will rejoice at the end of time when you discover that some of our sayings are true, and it will be reckoned for you as righteousness when you perform what is right and good before him, for your own good and for that of Israel.
The conclusion of this halakic letter, as it's called, emphasizes a few of the precepts of the Torah, in Hebrew, miktzat ma'aseh Torah, which is why in scholarly nomenclature it's referred to as 4Q, representing Qumran K4, MMT. The few precepts that it outlines were not trivial, but became central to the ongoing feud between two distinct branches of ancient Judaism: the priestly hierarchy in Jerusalem, who morphed from the Zadokite party into those known as the Sadducees, and the Essene Enochians, from whom multiple sects branched off with names like Bothusians, morning bathers, and of course the Judeo-Christians. We've only begun to scratch the surface of these intertwined rivalries. There's so much more to come.